I mean, I cycled a mile and a half to school in my picture on here, my school, if you want to see it, on my bike.
Yeah. I mean, you know, we weren't mollycoddle at all.
You had like a rolling convoy, didn't you? Because other kids would join in, come out of their houses en route and then out the neighbouring streets, and there'd be a whole horde of you walking up the road.
This was what brought the sociality to the whole thing, you know.
But how often do you see any kids walking to school these days?
Well, I watch the kids go to school in the morning to my place, but there are lots of parents that do walk their kids, and there's a lot of grandparents as well that walk the kids, you know. So, but equally so, there's a lot of people that go out in the cars.
How many of these children, by the way, actually dress for the weather?
Well, that's the other thing, isn't it?
Because it seems, which is how this sort of started, it seems that, you know, they may well wear their blazer, but it's, you know, it's misty, it's dank, and, you know, perhaps a bit of drizzle in the air, or you know it's going to absolutely chuck it down later. But how many do you know, we see some up near where we are, going to the academy, and I'm thinking, crikey, they are dressed totally inappropriate for today's weather.
Yeah, they are.
In the first place.
Yeah, they are.
Well, I mean, you know, I think this we talked about that as a primary school, you know, but there's the big school in Newport, the Ousdale School, you know, which is the senior school, and yeah, I often watch kids go out in the morning, and you know, there's black clouds up there. Yeah. They're walking down there with their shirts on, you know, no Macs or anything like that.
It's a fashion thing, because no one needs to see me with a coat on that might protect me from the weather.
That's right, isn't it? You know, and it's. I mean, do you know? I'm sure in fact, I've got two, I think, at the moment. I've certainly got one of these plastic Mac things that you sort of fold up.
I've got one in the car. Yeah,
yeah, I've got one in the car. You know, and they're absolutely great.
The only trouble is you get very hot in them, don't you?
Oh, I know. That's nice, isn't it? You know, at least it gets.
Well, in the winter, but in the summer, wow.
Well,
you can buy them for about £1, can't you? These things.
Yeah. Well, you could buy the capes,
the ones that even button up. I've got one of those. It goes in a little bag.
Oh, right. But that was 20
I picked up a couple in a pound shop.
Yeah.
It was two in a pack for £1.
Yeah. Not a packet of 3.
2 for 1.
Oh, what's that? Talking about this,
gentlemen.
Let's move on a little bit, but keep in the same sort of vein, because Topshop, their changing rooms are now going to go gender neutral.
Yeah, my wife says she won't go there.
Well, there's a lot of women won't go there, you know, but there's a lot of men who'll go there. But I mean, where are we going to draw this line? I'm getting really, really rather cheesed off now with this PC brigade.
And it's what's in your face all the time.
They're in the minority, but they're beginning to take over now. Yeah. You know, they're absolutely taking over the whole of the world.
Isn't the same with this PC business with the TV commercials, these Christmas commercials? They've got to show, you know, mixed families and all this now, haven't they? Yep. You know, a white and a black, you know, mixed marriage with a kid. You know?
Yeah, it's like a tick box. We want, you know,
we can't have English kids because we criticised.
We want a Chinese girl and a Russian girl and a Yugoslavian girl and an Asian girl.
That's right.
You know, we want to mix it all up. Have you know, every race on the planet represented, which is disproportional representation, really.
What I want to know as well is, how come these adverts on the telly can depict our saviour with a sausage roll? Why not a beef burger?
Yes.
Why not a cream puff?
Yeah.
Why not a Viennese swirl or whatever they're called, or a bit of Battenberg? Why a sausage roll?
Yeah. Too fattening.
Well, you know,
I don't know. Do we?
Well, you know.
What about these attempts at comedy? Then, like the farting creature that lives under the bed in that John Lewis commercial, and the carrot that's peed himself. Is this sending the right message out?
I haven't seen these.
Have you not seen this?
I don't.
He falls on a pea. He falls on a pea. The carrot is walking across a Christmas feast, and he says, "Oh, I peed myself."
Yeah, but that's like, you know, that's great, because you were talking about overboard political correctness. That's quite unpolitically correct. So that's great, isn't it?
I don't know.
Shouldn't you be celebrating that?
We've had a listener. We've had a listener text in. Thank you very much. She says, "How many schools are 15 minutes from their workplace, which is very true. Very, very good point, actually. Not quite sure who made that. It's probably Mark, actually. But
15 minutes.
Sorry,
what's the point he's trying to make?
Again?
How many schools are 15 minutes from a workplace?
Loads of schools.
No.
I think, is he trying to suggest... I'm not sure what he's trying to suggest. Is he trying to suggest that they're 15 minutes away?
No, it's because Alan came out with a statement, that the mums are dropping the kids off and they can't walk 15 minutes back to get in their car to go to their job,
And they end up being late for work.
It's not even 15... We'll get up earlier. It's not even 15 minutes away, is it?
But
drop the kids off at sort of 8 o'clock.
Well,
in this day and age, with flexi working... it is clear that companies should allow for the mother or whoever, the father, if they have to drop their children off at 10 to 9, they're going to turn up at 9:30 or 9:15, they're going to turn up late. Allowances should be made in this PC world.
Well, a lot of people drop their kids off early anyway.
Get real. I mean, if I was living in, let's just say, I don't know, Bogbeck Park, and I worked in central Milton Keynes and I was driving to work and I had to drop my child off at Neath Hill, I'd drive. Why wouldn't I? What am I going to do?
There's no answer to that, is there?
Why wouldn't I? There's no public transport. It's far too far to walk, and and I suppose actually it could take about 15 minutes if I walked it.
Well, how about they drop the child off at 8:30 and get to work on time? There are normally kids. I'll go past our school most mornings, any time between 7:30 and 8 o'clock.
Yeah, you're right.
And
football in the
children are being dropped off at 7:45, 20 to 8 in the morning. I cannot see a problem. We used to go to school and we used to be there as early as we can so that we can mess around and kick footballs around in the playground before we started.
All this when I was a lad. We used to walk up the big hill with a bag of overs strapped to our back. Stuff. I really doesn't wash. We live in a bag of overs stuck to our back on our backpack. This sort of idyllic world that we keep referring back to. What idyllic world? An idyllic world where actually you had choice of one school because it was your nearest one, and that's the one you could get to, because the concept of transport wasn't really there. We've evolved to a situation where actually people can live and educate and move around and get jobs where they like. We're not confined to walking distance, and just because some mothers abuse the system and do use cars for a very short journey, I don't think you should be condemning them all.
I think we've worn this conversation out.
Well, you're talking about flexible hours and all this sort of thing. Yeah, it is feasible in some organisations, but you could imagine shops, couldn't you? I've always worked, and it was 9 to 5 or 5:30 or whatever it was, and sometimes you would be late and you would apologise to the boss, but that was because there was an accident on the road or something like that. It was something that was taken out of your control. But the flexi hours, one of the things that used to annoy me intensely when I was at work were these people who will walk outside the front office's door to smoke. 4 or 5 times a day for 10 minutes.
The amount of time is incredible.
So I was working an 8-hour day and they were working a 7-hour day.
Right, yeah.
Because all the time they were out there smoking. It used to infuriate me, something rotten, because...
Well, you used to see where my wife worked at Waterline, it was always a crowd on them outside, every 20 minutes or so,
I used to deliver to buildings on industrial estates, and, that was the worst part of the job. When you get out of the van, and you had a little catalogue thing to drop through into reception, and you had to walk past 10 people stood out there, all blowing out clouds of filthy smoke, and you had to walk through them, and it used to make me sick. I used to feel like I wanted to get stink bombs and just drop one there in front of them, proper stink bomb.
I'm with you on that one.
Another thing about parking, why at Willand Park School there's a huge parking problem. They park anywhere and everywhere. They put yellow lines there and they ignore them, and it's quite dangerous to drive through there at school time, or half an hour each way either side. Why don't they use the playground for bringing cars in?
Well, arguably...
The kids aren't playing in the playground, it's a car park.
Arguably... I've this weird thing. When there's a lot of cars around, when kids are dropping parents off school, it slows the traffic down.
Well, it does. Yeah, indeed, it does. Yeah,
and therefore, the maximum speed of the traffic, any traffic,
0 miles an hour.
probably 5 miles an hour. So if little Johnny does run out and gets hit by a car, they're going to get a few bruises and all the rest of it, but they'll live to tell the tale. If you move the traffic off the road and put it into playing fields or playgrounds or whatever, then that frees up the road, and then you're going to get people zotting up the road at 50 miles an hour. And little Johnny runs out and gets hit at 50 miles an hour and doesn't live to tell the tale. So
that strip of road, it's impossible to do that.
Yeah, but you look at every school in the country, without exception almost, and they've got double yellow lines and zigzags and all the rest of it. But people,
I would actually hope that any new schools that are built have got some sort of feeder lane or drop-off lane, rather than just clog up the main highway that just goes outside.
Yeah, well, they have. I mean, there's a school in I don't know where it is.
It was in London, wasn't it?
South of Milton Keynes, but Milton Keynes itself, and they've got this drop-off zone, But it's like the people that built the M1. Let's build 2 lanes because that's going to be great. Now then, coming up from Watford, which used to be 2 lanes, I remember it when it first opened as 2 lanes, and now it's 5 lanes, and it's still not enough, because they're having to use the hard shoulder, and so they're making these drop-off zones for 15 cars, but there's 400 cars bringing the kids to school.
But also more to the point, you're getting parents that don't want to wait in line, do they? They've got to get in first.
I've got a bigger 4x4 than you. Mine's a BMW, yours is only a Ford,
Exactly right. I the case is, I parked outside the shops the other day, and this 4-wheel drive tank parked next to me, 2 women in it, and she just opened the door, bang, straight into my door, and walked off, and come back and did exactly the same thing. I just sat there looking at her, and she didn't even apologise. They were there fetching kids.
Well, the trouble is, you see, old age pensioners like you shouldn't be out and about in the morning when you should wait until the kids are all at school and everything else.
Well, this is home time.
It's even at home time. You shouldn't be out at home time. It's a pensioner, mate. You should be indoors watching Judge Judy on television.
You heard that, did you, when you phoned yesterday?
Yeah. Germany, must recognise they're the first in Europe to put third sex apparently on a birth certificate.
What's that, middle sex?
Yeah, they recognise the third gender for people who do not identify as either male or female on birth certificates. Its highest court have ruled.
Well, I thought when it said sex, you put yes.
Well, it would make it, or sometimes, it would make it the first European country to offer intersex people.
Oh, this is all going a bit too far, I think.
The choice of identifying as neither male or female. By the end of 2018, a new law must be passed offering an option to such people on birth certificates. The Federal Constitutional Court from Germany ruled in favour of an appeal brought by an intersex person. They had been registered as female at birth, but a chromosome analysis found them to be neither male nor female. Cool, that's a bit interesting, isn't it? A chromosome analysis found them to be neither male or female. Golly,
Middlesex.
It is Middlesex.
Some people are born with both sets of equipment, aren't they?
Well, I don't know.
Well, I would have thought that's pretty obvious then.
Yeah. You're both.
Aphrodite.
No, lucky.
Aphrodite's child, isn't it?
Hermaphrodite, isn't it? That's
hermaphrodite.
But intersex apparently is a broad term for people who have sex traits, such as genitals or chromosomes, that do not fit with typical notion of male and female. But under current rules, Germany allows parents of such babies to leave the gender options of male or female blank. Well, goodness gracious me.
Is this not leaving it blank because they want to choose the sex of their baby, change it at a later time, because they think there could be a problem, do you think?
To me, you're born, you're either male, female, or apparently you could be either.
Yeah.
That's it, it's sorted. As soon as you've come out of there into the big wide world, that's it. At that moment in time. If things change later, that's fair enough. Now, with something like this, how long is this going to be before this type of thing starts coming onto lists? And when you get stopped for speeding and the copper gets out his bit of paper and he says, what nationality are you? And there's not even a list that says English, right? And it comes down, what sex are you? Male, female, or somewhere in between? And you go, Well, somewhere in between.
But what's that got to do with your driving ability? So why does
Nothing to do with
why
it,
does a
but-
policeman need to know what gender you are to be able to nick you?
Oh, for
speeding?
The
statistics.
question was, how soon will it be before that will happen? Now, the thing is, the way things are going, this sort of thing is happening. It's happening in Germany now, with that, at that age. Give it another 10 years, 20 years, the PC Brigade will be in there. They will be asking you these things. And the question is, if you put down the third option, what's going to happen then? Because are they going to say, well, prove it?
Yeah.
Well, why would
It's pretty
they?
obvious at the moment. You look at someone and you make an instant decision. That's a bloke, that's a girl.
You're not always right,
I
are you?
cannot understand
You're
what
not always
anybody's
right.
worried about.
I'm not worried.